All right. So, Jason, I referenced the score earlier in the day at Georgia Tech where Miami goes down 28-23. Now, I'm not going to go through all the computations unless you've already got them, but we started posting videos a couple of weeks ago trying to run through all these scenarios and so forth, but it pretty much comes down to this, that SMU is undefeated in the conference. Miami and Clemson each have one loss. They don't play each other. If they both go the last couple games to complete the season at 7-1 in the conference, then it's going to come down to either who beat the highest seeded team, or it's going to come down to a collection of common opponents record, or it's going to come down to who had the tougher schedule in terms of winning percentage in the ACC. And I have yet to go through all that. I don't know if you've done the math on that or not.
As it stands right now, if Clemson and Miami were to finish tied at 7-1, Miami would get in by virtue of their win over Louisville and Clemson's loss to Louisville. Okay. So Clemson basically needs Miami to lose again, and they play Wake Forest. But then they go up to Syracuse to end the season. And that's a Miami defense that has had its own share of struggles this year. That Syracuse offense, they are very streaky. Make no mistake, they can be bad one day and really good the next. If you catch them on a day where Kyle McCord's playing really well, I give them a puncher's chance, but especially up there in that dome. But Clips would absolutely need Miami to lose one more, or they would need Virginia to beat SMU and then beat Virginia Tech. They would need Virginia to win the rest of their ACC games and Louisville to finish behind Virginia in the standings, which means Louisville would need to lose at least one more, maybe two. I don't know how it would shake out if Louisville and Virginia finished tied, but right now Louisville's one game up. If Virginia were to finish ahead of Louisville or own that tiebreaker and they beat SMU, and SMU and Clemson sitting there tied two ways for that last spot, they could get in that way. Wouldn't bank on that happening, but never say never. I've seen crazier things, but basically it boils down to Clemson needing Miami to lose again.
The reason all that makes sense, folks, is because Louisville lost to SMU and Miami, and they beat Clemson. Therefore, you want to get them out of the tiebreaker situation, is what that comes down to.
Exactly. And in that scenario, Virginia would have beaten SMU, and they'd have to finish ahead of Louisville in the standings. So, because it would go by, the quality opponent in order of finish. It gets very technical. But I don't even know if Clemson and SMU could finish in a two-way tie at this point. When it goes to a three-way tie, it goes to different scenarios. We'll see how it shakes out. With the Miami loss, though, it kind of does breathe a little bit of fresh air into your postseason aspirations there. You're still alive, and you've actually got a puncher's chance now. So we'll see what happens.
I think you hit on the most likely hope, and it's not in the favorite column. It's still a longer shot, but it's probably the best hope that Kyle McCord rips up the Miami defense. He's fourth in the nation in passing, and when he's hot, and they usually let him chuck it 45 or 50 times. So, like you say, in that dome on the final day of the season, that's probably the best option.
And they would probably have to beat Miami in a track meet, because that offense of Miami is going to score, man. They're going to put points on the scoreboard most of the time. I would have thought they'd put more on the board against Georgia Tech, but again, we've seen some crazy things this year, but all of this is moot if Clemson doesn't go up to Pittsburgh and take care of business this weekend. That should be first and foremost. You got to go up there and get a win. It's Clemson's last ACC game of the season. So they come back home to play Citadel in South Carolina, so that wouldn't even factor into what we're talking about here. But, you got to go up there and take care of your own business. And this is a reeling Pitt team. I got to watch a lot of the second, or at least most of the fourth quarter Saturday night in their loss to Virginia. And they got a lot of guys that are beat up right now. I lost count of how many guys left that game injured, including their quarterback. So we'll see what happens. This is a reeling Pitt team. There's no sense. You got it right here. Clemson's 10.5-point favorite. There is no reason that this Clemson team can't go up there and do what they're supposed to do and come back with a win. But again, That's why they play the games. They're not won on paper.
Yeah, their starting quarterback, Eli Holston, had to leave the game 2 consecutive games, the SMU game and now the Virginia game. And they had a
Head
couple shots
injuries
to
at
win that
that.
game. I'm sorry,
Both
what's that?
head injuries at that.
Yeah. Their backup, Nate Yarnell, who almost won the job and has been the starting quarterback in the past, only hit on 4 of 12 when he entered the game against Virginia. So Pitt, a lot of Pitt fans aren't too thrilled with me calling their team the worst 7-2 team you'll ever see, but they are 7-2, so let's give them credit for 7 wins. But yeah, the last 2 weeks it's looked pretty rough.
And they've had to gut out a couple of those wins too. You know, they overcame a late 10-point deficit in one of those games. They've squeaked out a couple. They could just as easily be 5-4 right now as opposed to 7-2. But credit to them, they found ways to win those games, and that's what well-coached teams do. But like you said, this is a beat-up Pitt team, and at the most important position on the field. 2 head injuries in consecutive weeks. I would be surprised if he's running back out there this week. But we are talking about Pat Narduzzi. He very well might run him back out there, so we'll see. But I would lean toward thinking he probably won't play. And what I got to see of the backup, I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Nate Yarnell.
He was not very good against Virginia, man. He was not very good at all. They had some opportunities to win that game. They got a favorable call that went their way on a 4th down late. Virginia did. But they had trouble moving the ball when he was in there.
So what Jason's alluding to, folks, is that Pitt stopped Virginia on a 4th down play, and everybody was going full go, but the officials, some reason they said we weren't set, we weren't in our right positions, so they let Virginia run the play again. They ran the play, they converted, then they kicked a field goal. They gave them a 5-point lead and negated Pitt being able to win the game with a field goal.
Yeah, we were watching that game in a restaurant, so all the sound was cut down. We couldn't figure out what the heck had happened. And a few minutes later, they finally showed the replay, and there's that one official. He's kind of still standing in there in the middle of everything. That was a huge break for Virginia. Huge break, because if Pitt gets the ball there, you know, they can go down and easily win that game. But big win for Tony Elliott, man. Glad to see he's getting that program turned around, headed in the right direction. Couple of tough years there for him to start with up there at Virginia. Again, this is going to be a reeling Pitt team, especially if they don't have their quarterback. Because again, there was a lot, even on top of Eli, there were a bunch of guys that left that game in that second half hurt. I think one of them was their top pass catcher or leading receiver, if I'm remembering that right. But maybe Clemson catches a break in that regard this weekend.
Couple 7-2 teams getting together in the Steel City, Clemson, Pitt, and get yourself set by checking out Jason's work at the Clemson Insider. All right, Jason, enjoy the game. Hopefully you get some decent weather on Saturday.
As long as it's not too cold, I'll be okay. Appreciate it, Mark.